Hallo, assalamu alaikum, good morning, khushamdi, ji ayanu, goeiemorgen.
Pakhair agale, ni hao, tuna shumme, washmale, ohaya gozaimasu, guten morgen, hola, boyor, privyet, kaifa hal, halish shuma chotore, ahlan wasalan marhaba, buna, mucho, gracias, swabiab, and a very amazing good morning to everybody who's tuned into PTV World and are watching World this morning alongside the very fabulous, the very amazing, the very energetic Shiza Hashmi and Shahzad Khan on a cold Friday morning. Hello Shiza, how are you today?
I'm absolutely great. A little cold, like you mentioned, but
Yep.
otherwise okay. How about
Well,
you?
that's great. I think same. Yeah, that's all I'm
Okay.
going to say. But yeah, since ladies and gentlemen, the weather is just out of control. It's getting colder day by day. It is very hard for me early in the morning to find my sleepers, and I think that I have got this fever coming to me again
Oh
and again.
no,
But for all of those people who are out there, please make sure that you keep yourselves warm. And we
absolutely.
do not want any of you to feel sick or ill because of the fact that we definitely love you.
Of course, and since we're speaking about, how we want you to be okay and we love you, there are so many people in the world. Right now, I'm specifically
Yeah.
talking about Shazad, our Kashmiri brethren,
Yeah.
who, of course, are probably at the moment right now not with their family members as well, not
Exactly.
with their friends, not with their loved ones, under curfew for more than 100 days straight. I mean, shops and business establishments, schools, everything's closed, roads, transport is off the roads and everything. I cannot imagine such a life for myself, God forbid, for even 3 days. And this has been more than 100 days. Ladies and gentlemen, I urge you all to please pray, because I feel like, Shazad, sometimes we really have to listen to the silence as well. It's not always about verbal communication.
Exactly.
And when silence is so loud, you really have to at least pray, if not do anything about it. So this
Exactly.
one's for Kashmir.
Exactly. And ladies and gentlemen, since it's Friday, so we all know that this was an initiative taken by our very own Premier, Mr. Imran Khan as well, where today we're actually going to stand in solidarity with Kashmir as well. And for everybody who's out there, please make sure that you take our time. And for all of those people, if you get a chance to speak with any Kashmiri, please let them know that Pakistanis are striving for their self-to-right determination as well.
course.
But then at the same time, Shiza, I think that you've mentioned a very apt thing over here and a very correct thing, that even silence speaks a lot of words.
Of course.
But there's one situation which I'm going to put right in front of you, and then you're supposed to analyze and let me know
All right.
whether that's correct or not. So ever
This is not
since,
scripted, just by the
yeah,
way.
obviously. So there are no scripts, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
We do not do scripts. So everything is promptu. So as a matter of fact, when we are born and we are raised by our parents, so there comes a stage in our life when our parents actually hold our fingers or hands and they try to make us walk.
Yeah.
And they try to make us talk as well. But there's this one thing which I think is missing, which nobody teaches anybody, and that is listening. Nobody tells anybody that how important listening is or how important can it be for you and how resourceful you can be if you know how to listen to people around you.
That's absolutely right. While I agree with you, Shazad, I feel like, I don't think it's a thing that you have to really school people about. I mean, you can teach someone to talk, you can
Yeah.
teach someone to cycle. But in terms of listening, you have to set an example by practicing it,
Yeah.
I feel like.
Exactly. No, but I think that there's definitely a difference in hearing and listening.
course.
See, hearing is something which you're going to hear. No matter what
Background
happens,
noises
if
as
there's
well.
somebody talking, you'll definitely get that noise in your ear. But how are you going to grasp that information? Because whenever we speak about listening, ladies and gentlemen, listening is absorbing the meaning of the words which
Yeah.
are being said to you. So I think that for everybody who's out there, it is a very important aspect. We have never touched upon it, and I haven't seen anybody within Pakistan speaking about the importance of listening or effective listening as well, because it can be very useful. Now, there are two types of people.
Okay.
I'm sorry that I'm digging in a little deeper
please,
as
I
well.
wanna learn.
So the two types of people, ladies and gentlemen, one, who are actually very good listeners and not very good speakers. And then two, who are not very good listeners, but they're good listeners for themselves, which means that they are selective listeners. And so what happens is that if you give them information which is directly in relation with them, they're going to process that information for their benefit. But if you're going to say anything other than which does not relate to them, I don't think that they are actually listening to you as well. So it's a funny story, and you cannot keep on listening to everybody because that's a lot of burden. I think that people really need to decide what I need to listen to and what I really do not need to listen to, because of the fact that it's just going to burden your brain.
Absolutely. But Shazad, when you're talking about even selective listening,
Yeah.
there must be a certain capacity of our brain, of us to comprehend
Yeah.
certain words as well. What do you think is a limit to which we can actually listen and understand something? as
Yeah,
well?
thank you very much for asking that. It's a very interesting question, and I don't think that a lot of people might even know about
Yeah.
this. And since we are presenters and anchors, so I think that the kind of research we do it is very important for us, you know, that so usually what happens is, ladies and gentlemen, that people actually speak at the rate of 125 and 170 words per minute.
On average.
On average. And the brain has a capacity of understanding 400 to 800 words a minute.
Okay.
So imagine, you know, so every minute we are actually losing out on 400 words as well. So please make sure for everybody who's out there that you speak at a rate which is very understandable for people and is convenient for them to process that information which you are actually sharing with them. But other than that, how important is effective listening? How can we actually build our personalities to an extent where we are good listeners, where we use whatever is being said to us for our advantage? I think this is something which we'll be talking about, because once you start listening and you're an effective listener, I think you're very resourceful, you can comprehend information, and you can use it for your own advantage. I think this is something which we are talking about today.
Yeah.
And I've picked up on my pace as well. I think this is 200 words per minute. But it's all right, ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, we're going to introduce our guest. Ladies and gentlemen, with us, a very kind human being. I recently did a lecture with him as well in Namal University, and he was very kind to me because he gave me his space and he gave a lecture after me. So I'm very respectful to this gentleman. He's a professor himself, and he's none other Mr. Abdul Wahab. He's a social activist and he's a motivational speaker. Hello, sir. Assalamu alaikum. How are you?
Walaikum salam. I'm fine. What about you? How are
Absolutely perfect. And thank you very much for that day when you gave me your slot.
you? It's my honor.
Thank you very
It was
much.
good. It was excellent.
And it's our honor to have you on the show as well.
Let me tell you, I took my time as well.
Well, that's good. So, ladies and gentlemen, alongside Mr. Abdul Wahab, we've actually been joined by somebody who is the CEO and the founder for the Institute of Mentor Excellence as well. She's none other than Miss Arooj Saqib. Hello, ma'am. Assalamu alaikum. How are you? I like that smile.
Absolutely fine. It's always a pleasure to be here with you people.
And it's
You're
always
so
a pleasure.
energetic, mashallah, and the way you start off.
Thank you
We
very
try.
much for saying that. Oh, yeah. Well, we have been trying for last 6 years. I think so. It's not trying. It's like repeating. But it's all right. I think everybody loves it. But last but not the least, ladies and gentlemen, we have been joined by a corporate trainer. I think corporate trainers have got a lot on their plates these days because of the fact that a lot of corporate organizations are inviting them over to kind of brief their people so that they can be resourceful and they can be useful for the organizations. They've done a great job so far. In the last 5 years, we have seen that this particular field, corporate training, has picked up quite a lot, or motivational speaking has picked up quite a lot. And it is because of the fact that all of these trainers, when they go to all of those people, they're definitely more resourceful than they were before this lecture. And I hope that they were effective listeners as well. But other than that, ladies and gentlemen, we have actually been joined by Muhammad Adnan. Hello, sir. Assalamu alaikum. How are you?
Walaikum assalam. Fine. How about you?
Absolutely perfect. Thank you very much for joining us.
Yes, thank you so much. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much. So let's get the conversation started. And
Let's do it.
So I just do not want to go, the way our researchers has done the research. So I have a very different take on this. Now, for example, I'm going to start with people who are actually married. And I and I think that's where the problem is. So,
Should I leave?
Yeah, no, you're not supposed to leave. But yeah, that's how it is. I think most of the time wives are saying something, you do not listen. Most of the time husbands are saying quite a lot, and the wives do not listen. Is it because of the fact that it's not worth listening, or is it because of the fact that this is something which you listen to every day?
Let me
Good
tell you,
question,
If
actually.
you have to survive successfully in this
Yeah.
world
Yeah.
and at your home,
Yep.
then you have to be a very good listener.
Okay.
Speaking is essential,
Yeah.
but it comes when it is allowed, you know. I mean, almost 24 hours you have to listen, and you have to be a good listener.
Yeah.
You have to really note the major points
Yeah.
which are supposed to be grasped by you in letter and spirit. And if you err over there in listening, then let me tell you, I mean, the whole atmosphere could really get spoiled.
But I don't know, in the first 1 minute or 60 or 90 seconds, everything's fine. And then eventually it starts to get a little abusive. And that's where you decide, okay, I think I'm done for the day over here. And I'm not supposed to listen to all of this. So what do you think the person needs to do? Because as a matter of fact, what I've seen is even in relationships, when the other person is not listening, I think it is very... it's not very calming for the other person or soothing for the other person.
It's rude.
In fact,
Yeah.
you're actually giving them more space to be more abusive. Yeah, that's how it is. Yeah. So Mr. Arooj, what about you? What's your take?
Let me tell you one thing first. The way it is coming from you, I think it's somewhere coming from inside as well.
Yeah, everything I say is coming from inside. It's straight from the heart.
But another important thing is that we do not treat listening the way we treat other things. When you're talking about spoken skills, or when you're talking about entrepreneurship, when you're talking about anything, when you know, like Bhai said that you can communicate and you listen, it is so important to have that emotional listening mental environment. Because when you're listening to somebody, what happens is that as a trainer, as a ECE coach, right from the beginning at childhood, we train children that what is listening. Listening is a complete process. I do have a small chart here.
Wow.
Just wanted to share it because so that everybody who is listening, because listening is done with the whole body.
All right.
So you know, what if you're saying that husbands and wives, they face a challenge, but what if that somebody's talking to you and you are looking here and you are looking there? So I mean, like the other person is like not receiving it well. The second thing is that your eye contact, your focus, you're paying attention. I mean, like there's so many parameters that your hands, your body gesture, everything. Before even you speak, like you're saying that you are not in a listening mode and it goes from one end to another. The reason is that what if you want to talk to me and if I have a smile on my face, you will automatically feel that, all right, I want to talk about
feel
it.
as if you're a
The
very
second
kind
thing
human
is,
being.
Inviting.
I'm talking to you and you people are focusing on me. So I feel valued, that all right, they're listening to me. We often understand that whatever is in our mouth, we just need to say it and that's we are done with. So that's not listening. So listening is with your mind, your body and emotionally. So you have to have that emotional, you know, atmosphere in the mind. The second thing is that when you have a conflict, in conflict, listening requires filtering, like Bhai said. So you need to focus on what the other person is saying. But when your own emotions, they come in, the listening phase, so there comes a break, disconnect. And that lands into troubles and that lands into, for example, if there is a word which is a trigger word for you. If somebody is saying something, your listening will stop right there and then because there is a disconnect. You are stuck on that trigger word.
Absolutely.
So we need to, you know, train ourselves that all right, we have to go beyond the trigger word where the message was, because the other person might be hurt, and you know, at that emotional point, you need to understand. And unfortunately, we don't give ourselves that much time. So listening requires patience also. And if you have that mindset, all right, that it's a skill that I have to enhance. Slowly, you know, until you make it, you fake it. It's that sort of attitude that, all right, I might not be able to absorb everything what they're saying, but I need to show them, all right, you know.
I'm fine with it.
And you know, parents, they often do this. Even if they're not listening, but they, ji beta, ji beta,
But they're
all
supposed
right, beta. And you know, they show you that they are absolutely with you, no matter what, the world will go away. And you feel so satisfied, even if they have listened half of it. So that sort of an attitude is required by what I believe.
And I think today is the day that I have actually realized that, you know, there have been situations with my father that I've actually asked him that, you know, okay, this is something which we're going to do on this day. And then when on that day, I've actually asked him and he was like, when did you say it to me? And I was like, you said yes the other day and now today you're like this. Yeah, but I think that it happens, and thank you very much for making me realize that parents do it on purpose as well.
No, but I think that's a good thing as well, because that is the first institution you're ever going to meet. And if they start to ignore you, neglect you, you're going to have a very bad personality, of course. But I'm just going to change the question a little bit for you, Mr. Adnan. You know, Shahzad mentioned that when you're in conversation with someone, okay, let's take a family member. A few minutes down the lane, you sort of zone out, even if you don't want to. I mean, of course, this might be important, or sometimes even not. How can you control not zoning out? Because me being a student, I zone out every day in class, to be honest.
Actually, thank you so much. Let me begin with, to me, listening is about two things, giving attention and paying attention. So you sometimes give attention, but not pay attention. Like if you are talking about in a relationship, if your wife is saying something to you, but you are giving attention, okay, I'm listening to you, but you are working on your laptop, on your mobile, you're not paying attention to her. She is continuously saying that I'm talking like this, I'm talking this, but you're not paying attention properly. You're working on something else.
Obviously you cannot pay attention because she's talking about your mother. How can you pay attention? You're like, okay, solve it with your mother-in-law. You're not supposed to say it over here, you know, so whatever.
So coming back to your question, Dex, we are human beings, we sometimes behave like that, but to me, we should be, make ourselves very relaxed, very calm and very patient. For a good listener, you have to be very patient, as she said.
All right. All right. Patience, of course, is the key over here when we're talking about listening. And Shazad, you know, when we talk about human development as well, we keep mentioning that it is a thing for the 21st century. But I feel like when we look at communication skills, of course, it was not given enough importance before. And it is essential for humans to exist. I mean, if they have to exist, they have to communicate as well. And when we're talking about, again, listening to, I feel like, I mean, it removes the burden off your chest like nothing else. Do you see in any, hold on, do you see in any form of poetry or even songs or something, a person who's hurt often uses a sentence like, you know, I wish I could talk to someone or someone would listen to me. Because just listening to someone can actually remove so many problems. Ladies and gentlemen, we do have a very informative report for you about listening actually right now. Let's do that. And when we come back, we will of course further this conversation.
Yeah, and when you guys are going to come back, there's this one more important aspect which we wanted to highlight over here, and that is that Ms. Arooj very rightly mentioned that there are trigger words. And there are people who will actually use these trigger words so that they can get a response from you. So I think there's one thing
That's
that you
smart.
really have to be wise about it. The second part is that as soon as that trigger word is being said, what we do is that we stop listening and we start thinking about the response or the reply we're going to give to that person. And this is where the situation gets out of hand. But first, let's take a look at this video and you guys are going to come back. We'll talk about this.
Yeah, let's do
Good
it.
morning.
Let's define listening as making meaning from sound. It's a mental process, and it's a process of extraction. We use some pretty cool techniques to do this. One of them is pattern recognition. So in a cocktail party like this, if I say, David, Sarah, pay attention, some of you just sat up. We recognize patterns to distinguish noise from signal, and especially our name. Differencing is another technique we use. If I left this pink noise on for more than a couple of minutes, you would literally cease to hear it. We listen to differences, we discount sounds that remain the same. And then there is a whole range of filters. These filters take us from all sound down to what we pay attention to. But that's not all. Sound places us in space and in time. If you close your eyes right now in this room, you're aware of the size of the room from the reverberation and the bouncing of the sound off the surfaces. I said at the beginning, we're losing our listening. Why did I say that? Well, there are a lot of reasons for this. First of all, we invented ways of recording. First writing, then audio recording, and now video recording as well. The premium on accurate and careful listening has simply disappeared. Secondly, the world is now so noisy. With this cacophony going on visually and auditorily, it's just hard to listen. It's tiring to listen. Many people take refuge in headphones, but they turn big public spaces like this, shared soundscapes, into millions of tiny little personal sound bubbles. In this scenario, nobody's listening to anybody. We're becoming impatient. And the art of conversation is being replaced, dangerously, I think, by personal broadcasting. We're becoming desensitized. Our media have to scream at us with these kind of headlines in order to get our attention. And that means it's harder for us to pay attention to the quiet, the subtle, the understated. This is not trivial, because listening is our access to understanding. Conscious listening always creates understanding. And only without conscious listening can these things happen. A world where we don't listen to each other at all is a very scary place indeed. I believe that every human being needs to listen consciously in order to live fully. Connected in space and in time to the physical world around us, connected in understanding to each other, not to mention spiritually connected, because every spiritual path I know of has listening and contemplation at its heart.
All right, well, this was of course interesting and informative for us as much as it was for you. But right now, ladies and gentlemen,
We're heading out towards a short break. Please don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Good morning.
stay tuned. All right, ladies and gentlemen, today we are talking about effective and conscious listening, of
Yes.
course, and how we can actually make use of that and improve our lifestyle, our relations, and whatever we're doing. So, Shahzad, you had a very interesting
Yeah.
question. If you can repeat it, please.
Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, before going towards the break and before watching that video, obviously I have to agree with that video as well that in today's world, we see that the media actually starts to yell and shout
Yeah.
whenever it's a breaking news. I don't know, just to grasp attention. But other than that, there are many other ways of effective listening or conscious listening as well. But before we indulge into that and how to develop that tool set for ourselves,
Yeah.
I think that it is very important for everybody to understand that there are people, a group of people, and whenever you're going to be surrounded by them, what they're going to do is that just to get the reaction out, they will use trigger words. And while you were being a good listener, they will use these trigger words so that you can actually stop listening and think of replying and how to answer back, just so you can actually make sure that people think that you are the wisest man around. And I think that this is a very wrong approach. I think everybody needs to listen to the person first and then ask them nicely, so whenever you are done, please let me know so that I can give my answer. Even this sentiment can actually land you somewhere where people will actually think that you've already started to think about the answer.
Yeah.
But what should we do in a situation like this? Should we sit back? Should we relax? Or should we train ourselves that whenever these trigger words are being used, we are not really supposed to respond in a way where we have been responding? So, sir, I think I'm going to start with you. People do it intentionally. People want to get to make you angry. People want you to yell, and people will keep on doing that to push your limits. How do you think we can control this emotion?
Well, you see, the thing is, first I like to say, we have to be good listeners. We have to be effective listeners. There are people in every environment
Yeah.
who are going to sort of perhaps provoke you. They are going to perhaps make you angry. But the thing is, we have to have within our personality a trait
Yeah.
that we are not supposed to respond to everything, especially which annoys us. We have to take our time to respond, you know.
Patience again.
Patience, you see. Apart from that, what would I like to say when we talk about effective listening? Even our religion, Islam, stresses on effective listening.
Of course.
Allah Ta'ala in Quran, at so many places, addresses various ummas that they don't listen. If they listen, verily they will come to Islam. So most of the ummas, they were destroyed because they never listened to prophets. If they would have listened carefully, what was the message? Perhaps they would have turned to embrace Islam. So in my personal opinion, listening is the basic foundation for success in life. Those who listen carefully, they get themselves relieved of stress, tension.
Absolutely.
They feel light because only after careful listening, they're able to respond to the needs of the speaker.
Exactly.
But it happens quite contrary in our life. We don't listen,
Yeah.
or we listen perhaps only what we desire to
But
listen.
we expect to be listened.
Exactly. If we listen with a view to reform what is lacking in our character or wherever we are in our role, so if we really focus on effective listening, perhaps we are going to help our own selves.
Exactly. And ladies and gentlemen, whenever we speak about effective listening, I think that it is actually going to land you somewhere very nice. And it's because of the fact that, you know, people who are effective listeners, they're managers, they're coaches, you know, there's administrative roles to themselves as well. And it's all because of the fact that they're good at listening. But very quickly, moving on to Ms. Arooj over here, because my question wasn't answered. My question is, people
I will
trigger you
give
on
it-
purpose
Yeah.
because people want your reaction on that.
Yes.
How do you think people can hold this emotion, listen to them carefully, and then come back with a reaction after they're done speaking, but not reacting to the trigger words?
First of all, that you need to understand if you're in a situation where you know the other person is going to work on your triggers. First thing is the realization. The second thing is that we call it mindful snack. It's a technique that anybody can learn. I brought it with me.
Okay.
So when you're talking about a mindful snack, first thing is to stop.
Yeah.
You stop right there in your mind and you see why is that person doing that, and is notice where he's coming from. The third thing is to accept. All right, he wants to harm you in a way, or he's coming from that way, he is going to play on your weakness, or whatever that you analyze at that time. Then this thing is that you have to be curious, why he's doing that? Where is the why? The moment you analyze that why in your mind, then you can tackle that. And then be kind at all times. Whatever he is saying, you can always communicate your point of view, but in a very subtle way. But then again, when we are talking about that, listening is taking place and this phenomena is happening, this phenomena happens with like 7 key actions.
Go ahead.
All right.
So 7 key actions is that if you are not attentive, and when we are saying attentive, have you heard about the skimming technique?
Of
What
course, I'm a
skimming
student.
is that you can't read the entire book. So like in listening, you have to do skimming as well. Like if somebody is saying, oh, the bomb blast, so you just pick that word. That's an important keyword. So we have to tune ourselves that you are attentive and you're just picking the cues. The second important thing is that if somebody is asking you or cornering you and triggering you, when you stop, you notice, then you ask a relevant question that can give you insight to why he's behaving in that manner.
Or to get the attention.
Exactly. And then ask probing questions. And that is a technique, because if somebody is trying to, sabotage you, to come up with a question that is going to probe in and make him think, or should I, change the way that I am talking to the other person?
All right.
Then respect. Even if you are facing adversity, you have to show respect. Then you have to paraphrase whatever the other person is saying. That always helps. All right, you have asked me a question that if you are in a challenging situation, how would you react? The moment you do that, the other person realizes, oh, I've done something. See, because you are bringing that thing in a conscious way to his consciousness, that you have asked me this thing, are you really want to ask this? So, that sort of a thing. And then be attuned to the whatever is there, because your reflective mind is telling you inside, all right, what you need to do, but do not be reactive. If you see these 7 steps, what are you doing? You're giving yourself time to analyze, and the moment your mind starts working on something, you calm down. You're never reactive.
Exactly.
What we do is, we do not follow the process, we do not observe, and we give a reactive reply. And what happens is, we are in the sake of listening to just give a reply. And when you are at a situation, you have seen that the board of directors, the CEOs, the organizational heads, they're very calm.
Yeah.
Anybody who's making a decision, they would just calm down, they would take that time. And that stopping phase is so important, because that gives you mental clarity. And we don't even realize, even if it is for a split second, the anger reply that was supposed to come out, even if in relationships, next time when you face such a challenging situation, try it. Because when your wife or mother-in-law or anybody is saying to say something, just stop and give yourself time, and then you will see, all right, it's not that big a
It
deal.
wasn't a big deal. But yeah, which is why, this, so ladies and gentlemen, it's going to be confession time over here on the show today. So now, I'm sorry that I'm bringing it up, but I think it's very important. Now, when we say that there are people who use trigger words, are definitely those people who actually are usually around you, and because they know that this is something which is going to trigger you, so they take advantage of it. Even in your friend circle, this is something which happens a lot. Now, as a matter of fact, something I'm going to confess in the first place, and then all of you are supposed to confess as well. For me, ladies and gentlemen, I think something which is being imposed onto my personality, that this is one of your personality trait, and you do it this way. And when somebody imposes it on me, I think that this is something which is a trigger, and I would love to stop that person right there and then. And I think it is very important, and you cannot give anybody any more space to speak about your personality traits. I think this is something where you really need to stop listening and start reacting, because for once, if you keep on listening to that, people one way or the other are going to assume that the other person, whatever he was trying to say about your personality traits, people will believe that it was true because you kept quiet. So this is one confession, and this is a trigger word. Whether it's correct or not, Mohammed Saab, we're coming to you as well. What about you? What's your confession?
All right, so here's the thing.
What triggers you?
I don't know about the confession though, but Shahzad, I feel like what you said right now, it actually leads back to what you asked a while ago. How to stay calm in terms of trigger words as well. That is your test too. I mean, of course, if someone is pointing out things to your personality, I'm going to hate it, of course. I mean, you don't know anything about me. You have absolutely no right to say it. While that is also the moment of test for me to stay quiet. I mean, I don't feel like I have the energy energy or accountability or entitlement to actually reply to this person who's not using their mind. I don't think I have any sort of energy to reply to them. So I would rather keep quiet, and I think that is what you should
Exactly,
do.
that's great. Adnan Sahab, what about you?
Yes, just coming back to your question.
First, you have to confess what triggers you the most. Yeah.
I mean, when somebody abuses you a lot, but although I remain cool and calm, but somebody is coming and abusing you, and that's
So that triggers you.
Yes. But coming back to your question, let me recall an example of U.S. President Abraham Lincoln. Once he was in a conversation with a person, so the conversation was in high mode. So the other person is abusing Abraham Lincoln, and he was staying cool and calm. But one time, the other person just took a glass and threw on Abraham Lincoln. So he just remained cool and calm at that time. And after that, he
Water
said,
makes you
"Okay,
cooler."
that was the response of your argument. Let's start debating again."
Yeah.
So I mean, he remained cool and calm at that situation as well. So we have to be like him as well in a situation in order to keep the relationship smooth functioning.
Yeah.
So that's what I think.
I think that's it. What about you? What triggers you?
I have a different take on it. There are so many triggers, like you said, that if somebody is unfair, so it's not easy for a person to absorb.
To sit
But
back, yeah.
over a period of time, you realize that what your worth is. The most important thing, like I said earlier, that you need to understand where you're coming from. You have to be true to yourself. Once you know yourself, what other people are saying is going to affect you less. But then again, I say it repetitively, that you need to understand that which mode are you in. We actually perform from 3 different modes, every human being. One is a parent mode, the other is a child mode, and the third is, which is the best mode, is the adult mode. For example, if your parents are saying something, in reply, you could become a parent, or you always say this, why are you saying this? So that's a parent mode that you are applying back. Then it could be that you become a child, oh, always this, and you know, that sort of a thing. And then there is an adult mode where you go into reason. All right, I respect you. Can you tell me like why it's done that way? So unfortunately, when we just want to give a reply, we do not analyze those things. So it is important. Now with the passage of time, and you know, we are into training business, so we train people that you need to sit with yourself, you need to understand yourself, and we do not give time to ourselves. That's why you see in this era of disruption, what is happening? Everything is going haywire. Everybody's on mobile. Even I went to one event and I was like surprised that it's a networking event, and like 12 people all are on mobiles. I'm like, you networking? What's the purpose of that gathering when you're sitting here and there and everybody's on the
It was
mobile?
digital networking.
So like, what is happening? Because you're not spending quality time, you're not giving, and as far as listening goes, there's no quality time of listening. That's why we see anxiety in children. That's why we see anxiety in spouses. That's why we see anxiety in families. That's why the divorce rate is high, because if you just take some time with yourself and be honest to yourself that what is bothering me, that's the observation part, that why other persons, if you're at peace with yourself, no matter what your mother is saying or your wife is saying or your boss is saying, you will know, all right, where it is coming from. He had a fight with his wife, so that's why he's, you know, scrutinizing everybody. That's a routine thing. All right, we need to bear with it. But there are few things, like he said, that people might be behaving very oddly. I do not agree with this thing that you should not show them. There are different ways. You might not react in that inappropriate way that you throw a glass of water at somebody, but you need to tell them with your body language. You might go quiet. Or I remember when my father was upset about something, the best thing that he did was that he went quiet, and everybody knew that there is something he didn't like, and he never voiced it, and we would analyze it. And you know, the best change comes when other person realizes, internalizes, and then acts on it. Unfortunately, we do not give the time to other person to, you know, think and absorb. So there are other ways to go about it. Instead of, you know, just going into verbal battle, you could get quiet. You can give the other person absorbing
to
time.
think as well.
Very well said.
I think, Aruj, you did a very good job at explaining it, and you actually brought me to my next point as well. You know, while of course I understand we decided to talk about the technical or logical part of listening, but I do want to towards the end highlight the therapeutic or the psychological part of this as well.
Go ahead.
This was just a few days ago. I was in conversation with, no names of course, with someone who didn't grow up with the siblings, who was alone of course, and the parent relationship was not even good as well in terms of listening. Like, he just kept saying that I was alone, no one was there to listen to me. which of course a lot of people do feel. Teenagers actually do feel that. But you know, in my case, I would tell you, whenever all of our sisters would come from school, even if Mama was cooking or something, she was in the kitchen, like you said, she wouldn't listen, but we would tell her all our stories, and then she'd be like yes or no or things like that, you know, which made us actually feel that hey, we shared it, and thus we wouldn't go outside to share it with people. So for you know, for unfortunate kids who didn't have siblings growing up, or who had a broken family growing up, who didn't have enough friends or trustworthy friends, is there any way, now that they're in their 20s, they can, let's start with you, Mr. Abdul Wahab. I can't say if they can reverse it, but is there any way they can actually bring that childhood back?
Yeah, it's always possible. You know, in such a case where
like
they
your
didn't have the
optimism,
they didn't have the company of siblings, perhaps they can try to find the same sort of relationship, maybe in mother, maybe in father, maybe in friends. You see, the thing is, whatever we have missed, we really can't reverse that life cycle. But the thing is, we can always try to find alternatives.
Or what we can do is we can probably try that, you know, the same does not happen to their kids. I think
Of
that
course,
this
I
is,
think
this
that
can be
naturally
one
happens as
initiative.
well, right?
Exactly, exactly. You see, I mean, in life, basically what happens, we can't get whatever we want. So we have to go for alternates.
Okay.
For example, if you have a very good friend, you can always share. But in case if you don't have a friend, then you have to find a sister. If you don't have a sister, perhaps mother could be your best friend. If mother, unfortunately, if she's not there, then father. You have to go for alternates, and you have to find a person where you, or with who you can really share your inner thoughts. At the same time, coming back to Shehzad, your question, the thing is, you know, triggers vary from person to person. At the same time, if we dub it like critical analysis of a personality, we have two types of environments, formal and informal. Usually at homes we have informal environments where we know weaknesses of each other. You see, so there if somebody, I mean, analyze you critically, then we can be patient listeners. We can really try to improve upon all those weaker areas. But in formal environments, suppose it's a boss, suppose it's a stranger, suppose it's a client, suppose it's any sort of relationship which is formal, and that person starts castigating you, starts criticizing you without probing deep into whatever happened, we are supposed to react.
Exactly.
You see, because that relationship does not allow, you see, the other person to start criticizing you. So that really spoils relationship, and we really have to stop, you know, coming to that point.
Exactly.
Right, absolutely.
But then
Very
at the
good.
same time, ladies and gentlemen, since we've spoken so much about listening, I think I'm going to say a few words about the speakers too as well. And yeah, you're very right that, you know, while we're at our homes, you know, the environment is very informal until unless you have a bureaucrat father as well. and it's everything is formal too.
Yeah.
The bureaucrats are going to be very
Let me add something.
It's all right,
to
but
his,
there's one thing which I wanted to add over here, and ladies and gentlemen, that is that whenever you speaking, I think for all of those people who have this urge of sharing things, there are two things I'm going to tell you. First of all, that whoever you're going to share it with, even they have friends. So if it's personal information, please do not share, and there shouldn't be any urge of sharing. And if there's so much urge within you that you want to share it with your Allah, I think He's the only one listening. And people who share their personal stuff with other people, they do land in trouble. So please make sure that if you're sharing it with somebody, make sure that he or she is actually very close and in love with you too.
Well, I do agree with that. Okay,
I'm
go
just adding to his points. I'm just talking about the siblings. So I have a young daughter of 5 years old, and she talks a lot. I mean, she talks more than 200 words per minute. So, but she's alone as well. She's the only child I have. So I'm just talking. She feels alone, and she says always say, I don't have a brother, I don't have a sister, I don't have many friends, so I feel bored.
I think it's about time
So-
you realize as well.
So I mean, I have to realize this thing, and I have to give her time, and most of my time she takes a lot. And I asked keep asking my wife to give her time as well. So I don't have to listen. I am getting bored. I don't have brother and sister. So what you were saying that exactly. I mean, a young youth is feeling this dilemma.
Yeah.
And coming back to your question sharing, I'm just recall one more incident I have.
Okay.
One of our renowned columnist, he shared his father's incident. His father was suffering from various diseases, so he was unable to take him to the hospital. So once he's got a time to take him to hospital, but suddenly he got a call to come back to office. So he just asked her father to, I will keep you to my friend, so he will take care of her time, and I will take you to hospital.
Yeah.
So after that time, he took his father from his friend's house, and his father asked him to, so I can go to your friend's office if you don't mind. So his father start using to going his friend's office, and after 1 week, he realized that his father start recovering. His blood pressure is in control, his sugar level is control. So he asked friend, "What have you done with my father?" He said, "I didn't do anything. Your father comes daily and he sit in front of me and he talks a lot. He shared everything with me. I simply respond yes, yes. I mean, don't talk single word with me, but he shares a lot with me.
Yeah.
So your father was not suffering from the disease, he is suffering loneliness. So you should pay attention to your father and listen to him.
Exactly.
Wow, that's absolutely brilliant.
And
Thank
that's
you
a
so
great
much for
message.
saying that. Thank you so much for being here, guys. And this was, well, effective and conscious learning, ladies and gentlemen. If there's anything you learned or listened to, of course, write to us on our Facebook page with the name of
World This Morning.
On Twitter.
World This Morning without a G.
Daily Motion on YouTube.
World This Morning, World This Morning.
And the repeat you can catch
5
at
past 11 p.m. tonight. Till the next time, 1, 2, 3.
Good
Good
morning.
morning. Thank you.